Well, I'm going to steal from Roger, where he said, the movies are a machine that generate empathy. I just love that. I think to me that's the most precise and elegant definition of what great films do. And I think it particularly applies to documentary. They really do put you in the shoes and through the eyes of someone else and help you understand something deeper apart from you. When I was a junior in college in Virginia at James Madison University, and on a lark, I took a film appreciation course offered in the English department because I'd heard that the professor did a great class and that you watched a bunch of movies, and I liked going to movies, so I thought, oh, great. I wasn't, I don't think, thinking of it as like an easy grade. I was really thinking of it as this will be fun and I'll learn a lot. And it just so happened that when he taught that particular semester, instead of doing a survey course like he typically had done, he mixed it up and he decided to do an auteur class. And so we looked at the works of Ernst Lubitsch, Jean Renoir, Alfred Hitchcock, and Arthur Penn. And it was, it was an incredible experience, but it was also surprising and challenging for me because, like, looking at Jean Renoir's work, for example, watching the rules of the game, and having him tell us that it's at the top of many lists as the greatest film ever made, and then watching it and going, why, how, and then watching it again, and then watching it again, and really starting to understand something about it. So, I mean, the thing about that class is that it just totally hooked me into this idea of it would be great to kind of tell these stories or tell stories and create your own little world that you can make with film. We saw every Charlton Heston movie that came out, and I remember thinking they were kind of good and whatever. My dad was hugely into it. But then he said, hey, I want to go see this movie called Paper Lion. And it was about George Plimpton's foray into playing for the Detroit Lions in preseason at quarterback. And we went as an entire family to see it, which we had never done. It's an odd little movie. But I remember coming out of there and just being thrilled at the kind of glimpse behind the scenes of pro football, because it had real football players in there, it had real coaches in there. You really felt like, almost in a documentary way, you were seeing the way it really is in football behind all the facade. And I just remember being exhilarated by that. And I think in some ways that might have been the initial tiny little spark that eventually led to me wanting to be a documentary filmmaker. Certainly in film, really the first most significant one I would say was Renoir, because once I started to really kind of understand this kind of sort of artless but beautiful style that he managed to achieve in his films, deceptively artful in some ways. I just loved it, and I could, in a way, it sort of prefigured my interest in documentary, because his sort of interest in telling stories and digging beneath the surface and understanding people. Everyone has their reasons, the famous quote from Rules of the Game. And just the way in which he approached storytelling and the characters in his films, it was amazing, the depth of it all. So that was definitely a profound influence. Oddly enough, Kubrick was an influence too. I think whatever epic aspirations I have as a documentary filmmaker, having made some long films that try to get their arms around bigger things, in a weird sort of way, I think was helped along by my love of Kubrick. There was something so grand about his films, and seeing them in theaters, starting with 2001, which was the first film of his that I saw. There was something, it's so huge and so significant about the work, about what he did in cinema, that it just kind of swept you up in it. And I think that in the world of documentary, Barbara Kopple was an influence. Seeing Harlan County and American Dream were two films that really impacted me, the way in which she she captured the humanity of people, and sometimes people on opposite sides of a situation, and the way she embedded herself into situations. And then I think Apted's 28 Up, particularly that episode of it, but also the series as a whole. But that episode is the first one I saw. I think it might have been the first one distributed in the States. And that really captured me. Again, the ambition of it and the idea of seeing someone grow up before the camera, I was completely, compelled by. And I think it actually had an influence on the making of Hoop Dreams. We didn't do it the way he did it. We didn't, follow people over their entire lifespan every 7 years. But that idea of seeing someone change on camera and grow up was certainly something I think that was inspired by that film. If you're serious about making movies, find a way to make a living that doesn't prevent you from making your movie. Meaning, if you can help it, don't take some full-time job that destroys you week in and week out so that you have no energy and creative time or any kind of time to go make your movie. Find a way to keep making movies at the center of who you are, and worry less about career and living. Oh my God! Yeah, I mean, a good university cinema I think is crucial. When I was at SIU and then started to study film, they had a pretty strong program of screening there at Southern Illinois University. They brought in Chris Marker films, and they brought in Lancelot of the Lake. I remember seeing that at the at the theater and being as befuddled as anything by it, but still just challenged by it. And they brought in more popular fare, but they did stretch our boundaries, and not just the boundaries of film students, but of the university community. And I think that's extraordinarily vitally important. And then I look at what you have here, which goes well beyond what I got when I was in school, which is you're not only showing great films, but you're actually bringing filmmakers into the university setting and having them spend time with the community and with students. I think that's a real gift, because I think students need to interact with people who've been out in the world doing this and doing it in different ways from each other, so that they can kind of really get a sense of what awaits them and the different ways they could make it work for them. And they may make it work completely different from anybody that you've brought in. But even that, knowing that there are so many ways to make films, so many ways to navigate this world of filmmaking and make a living, I think that's really important.